Pledge allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, so we'll do roll call. Mary Jo Rosmanowski is absent. Mary Jo Radcliffe is absent. Patty Jacobson.
Here.
Laurel Meek here. Amy Huffman. Here. Nehoma Fendercloud is absent. Todd Stedelberg.
Here.
All right. And Marty has the meeting been properly noticed?
It has.
Okay. And is there anyone here to make public comments that on something that isn't on the agenda? No. Okay, and then prior to getting started, I'm wondering if anyone would be willing to make a motion to move item 10.1 to right after focus on purpose.
We have a student here to present on the wind turbine, and I thought if we could do that right after the other pieces, that would be helpful.
I so move.
All right, a second. All in favor? Yes.
Aye.
All right, so next up is board commendation. Mr. Jared Smith.
Excellent. Come on up, Jared. Jill's going to take a picture. Here. I'm very pleased to present on behalf of the board a commendation to Jared Smith. Jared has been deeply involved in many areas of our community, but most recently somebody suggested or nominated Jared for the board commendation because of his work with youth hockey and high school hockey, I should say. Jared has coached at many levels. He's just been involved a ton, but he is the voice of the Tigers when you go to either boys or girls hockey games. And as someone who's spent a considerable amount of time in hockey rinks around the state, there is an energy in that arena when Jared is behind the microphone that does not exist otherwise. And honestly, we all know that it takes so many volunteers to make any organization run and to function. And there are parents who would likely be willing to do it. If their name had to be put on the schedule, they'd be willing to do it, but not with the zest and the enthusiasm. And one of my favorite sayings, Zach Zilmer plays hockey, and so he always jokes, he's like, that goal was brought to you by the letter Z, he says, like back to my old Sesame Street days.
We actually played the Sesame Street song at a game this year.
Which is the other added bonus to Jared Smith being there. He has got an eclectic music collection that is just hilarious. And honestly, it just elevates the whole atmosphere in the arena a great deal. And so we are very, very, very appreciative and would like to present you with the board commendation.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you, Jared. And if you would like to take your Thank you. Thanks for coming.
Thank you.
Not to mention half the players have nicknames, and when Jared starts going through, some of them when they score, it's like a minute has passed and he's still announcing that last player because their name, well, George,
George Jorge Meek.
That's right. That's the thing. So he certainly adds some life to it. So thank you so much for coming tonight. And please know that we have a lot of business to do. You certainly don't feel obligated to stay because there's a basketball game tonight too. If you're so interested in that, but you're welcome to stay. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, and next, our focus on purpose.
Tonight our focus on purpose is the CTE area. February is actually Career and Technical Education Month, and so some of the CTE teachers have asked a couple students to put together a video highlighting the diversity within the CTE program. And so Jill's going to play the video for us. Kill the lights. Lost it. Queued up. Push the button in. Yep, it's up. Try it again.
Well, I think CTE classes for all students are important because it gives them a real-world application of things that we do. Whether they're going to go into a career field that uses that information or if...
All right. It's supposed to be seeing Brian talk, not the tiger mascot talking. I'm not sure why I did that. It worked before. Just bring me the options. I'll close it. You open it?
Well, I think CTE classes for all students are important because it gives them a real-world application of things that we do. Whether they're going to go into a career field that uses that information or even if they're going to be a homeowner or somebody that just does it as a hobby. I think that a lot of kids these days don't have the opportunity to work with their hands as much as they used to. I think it gives a lot of kids some self-confidence, just like if they go out for sports. I think that some kids come to school just to take their CTE classes, whether it be in our area with automotive or the woods or metals or drafting, or if it's in the ag department or the business department or in the face department. I think that all this kind of information that kids learn about and get a chance to have hands-on experiences with is helpful.
And why do you think business classes like business law are important for students to take?
They're important because that we prepare for the future and we could be more fiscally responsible. So it gives you a basic understanding of how business works.
I think classes like keyboarding and other business classes are important because it gives you a great understanding of laptops and computers, as long as it can be your lifelong lessons on computers and being professional when you're talking to employers and stuff like that.
Why do you think students should take classes like woods and metals?
So they can learn how to do better stuff, like actual hands-on work.
I think taking shop classes like woods and metals have a lot to offer to a student. For example, many career paths in this sector are often overlooked, and taking these classes can spark interest in those career paths.
No, it's not working now. It worked earlier. It's like the audio is on a separate track from the video.
So why do you think classes in the family consumer department are important?
I think they offer more of a lifelike perspective that other classes don't always offer. Like, you might not use math day to day in your job, but people that want to do something creative like sewing or design or like even cooking will use these skills every day. And even if you're not interested in jobs that are like that, I mean, everyone eats, everyone has clothes that they might have to mend once in a while. I've seen the hockey guys and the football guys have to sew something once in a while, and I just think it's a good skill to have.
I think they are important because you learn a lot of life skills and more hands-on work.
Noah, why do you think classes like agricultural classes are important for students to take?
I think they're important because they can help set them up for the future, for their future careers and whatnot. Like, I want to be a veterinarian, and it helps me build a foundation to help me get to where I want to be.
Well, I think agriculture is a big part of Wisconsin,
and so taking classes to learn about it will help you in the long run if you would like to pursue a career in agriculture.
I think one of the biggest things that students in CTE learn is to be probably better problem solvers. And that's a skill that whether you're using in CTE classes or in other classes or in just real world situations, that it's going to help them out.
So the video was put together by Tyler Liebholm and Kyle Peterson, and I may have said to them, there's 500 kids in that high school, and both of the Severson boys landed in your video seriously, but that's all right. He made the video, so I apologize for the technical difficulty. It did stream earlier. But as February being CTE month, the Spotlight on Schools Friday radio spots this month are also all CTE related, other than the one advertising the opening at the field house. But Andy Richards from the Tech Ed department, which you met last month, was up there recording a couple spots, and he brought his little electric guitar up there and actually played a little tune for Brian for the radio spot that's coming up. So.
Thank you very much. So, now our wind turbine presentation from Bryce.
So there are two students that are working hard on this. One of them sadly was inflicted with illness today. And we know it's legit because he didn't even go to hockey practice, so he must be seriously ill. But Austin Janowski is here, and Michael Skilling has been his partner, and then Jessica McNamara, the Bryce teacher. So they're going to share with you.
Now, do you have their
presentation? Yep, just put it up right now.
So tonight, I guess Austin will be the one sharing the update on what their overview of their project was or is. And so I know at one point we'll probably ask maybe for ideas and feedback, but they're trying to connect some real world aspects to a project on a wind turbine that we want to have more permanently placed associated with one of the schools. And so again, I know that Mike just got sick today, so it was a really unexpected thing, so AJ's going to step up. I'll help him out if he needs it, but he's definitely passionate about green technology, so I'll let him, I guess, kind of take it away from there.
All right. My name is Austin Janowski, and did the word wind turbine. Why we did this project, like she said, I'm really actually passionate about all green technology, not just wind. I actually did some previous projects on solar panels and stuff like that, but we did this project because we are both seniors this year and we are leaving, so we wanted to come up with something that could educate the kids and also have an impact, and not only that, but we could put our names on when we leave. So we did this project to get hopefully proposed and put up at the new elementary school being built over on County Road 8. How it's going to educate kids, I guess you could say, is there's 3 lights down here that indicate like energy being produced. On here it's different because it's not how we want it set up originally, but how we want it set up is on like a non-windy day, really, it'd be down in the red, where 2 lights or 3 lights would be lit up at one time, and then on a mild day, when it's kind of windy, it'd be yellowish with the other 2 lights, and then on a really windy day, say during a storm or something, it'd be green on the very top lights. So I'll show you. Hold on to your papers.
It must be a strong fan.
That's pretty much how it works. And then how we want to get kids involved is putting it at the new school and teaching them about wind energy and green energy just all around, solar panels, wind turbines, anything that's green, really. Goals for the turbine are to present it and hopefully get it approved, because I think learning more about wind energy and like solar and stuff like that when you're younger could impact you as you go along in school, as it did me wanting to present this to you guys. That's the wind turbine that we plan to put up. We already have everything for it. All we would need is installation costs and here's some of the prices. We need lights, which would be at $797 total for one of them, but we need 6 of them. And then thimbles are like the support cable things. I don't know how to really explain them. I wish I had a picture of them, but they go down at the bottom, so the support wires stay. And then the ground anchors, the square wood post would be for the fencing around it, because since it would be going up at elementary school, we'd want to put a fence around it so no kids go and get hurt on the guide wires or anything. The board would be outside the fence so they could read on it, and so would the meter box to show like how much energy was produced in a day or overtime. So that stuff would be outside the fence. If anything went wrong with the fence, it would be repaired as soon as possible, because we don't want somebody getting hurt with that. Electrical wiring, we also would need some help on that. And I talked to, Ms. McNamara talked to Eric Pipkin about off the grid and on the grid prices, and it'd be cheaper to go off the grid because this wind turbine wouldn't be producing like crazy amount of energy. It'd mainly be for like the educational purpose, and putting it off grid would show like how much it produced in one day, and we could get it set up like certain ways like that. Putting it on the grid would mean we'd want to actually connect it to the solar panel, because if it's if you put them together, it's cheaper. But if we did like an on-grid with just this, it would cost anywhere from $3,000 to $4,000 just to install it and get it on the grid. And so.
And just to supplement a little bit about the install, something we talked about when Mr. Chambers and I met with AJ and Mike. The London Community Center, when they took down the solar panel to build the London Community Center, the arrangement was that they would then pay for the reinstall. So that's why we kind of came up with the idea that if we were to reinstall the solar panel and do this at the same time, perhaps there would be cost savings, and we would be able to gain a wind turbine in addition to the solar panel being reconnected. So that cost is already budgeted by the London Community Center. So.
Why is why is wind energy important? It's important because it's renewable and there's tons of it. There's, I don't know, it's just really good, I guess. Wind energy also isn't mined, so it doesn't have to be transported or anything, so that also cuts out a big cost in wind energy, so you don't have to pay for trucks or workers to pick it up and haul it and all that stuff. So that's where it also comes in to be very cheap. These are just some pros and cons. Here's the pros anyways of economic advantages. Fewer subsidies, free fuel, and price sustainability. Environmental advantages, conserves water use, clean water and air, renewable sources, and land preservation. Some cons, wind fluctuates, can't always produce enough energy. Wind turbines are a little pricey. As you saw, it could cost $4,000 if we do on the grid, so, and that's just for installation, that's not even for the actual turbine. Wind turbines can be noisy. This one really wouldn't be because it's a smaller one. With the noisy is those big ones that you see like cashed in or wherever you see them. Those can be very noisy. Some people are also concerned about how they look. And then some environmental disadvantages. They are a threat to wildlife, mainly birds, because they fly into them. believe it or not, it's actually possible. I didn't think it was, but a lot of birds actually do get injured or killed from wind turbines. Only suitable for some regions, meaning like, you can well, like here, where there's like a map that shows where it would be good to put like a turbine and where it wouldn't because of the wind, the hills and stuff like that, and we're right on the edge of like good and bad in a way. So that's another thing, and then turbines can be dangerous during large storms.
Not me to since mine's not here.
Sure.
So they did do this project together, and I know some of the format of this presentations are showing up here too. But so the kids went through the basic parts of the turbine as well. The things that they focused on were the tower, nacelle, and the rotor blades. They looked into what basic materials the items are made of. So when we talk about comparing a lot of turbines that people are thinking of, you're thinking of more, I guess, the industrial ones. The one that we have, again, that AJ showed a picture of, I think, when it's complete is around 27 to 30 feet, so it's mostly consisting of like fiberglass and metals. You can go to the next slide. So on an image of a larger one, the things that we would mostly be focusing on with our wind turbine are the basics, the rotor blade, the nacelle. You can't really see the functioning gear parts on the turbine that we have, and usually in real life you can't see those either unless you have images or details. Goes through a basic, hookup. The tower that they have is mostly piping and the guy wires, so we don't really have an official tower like this image. And then the kind of end product would just depend upon what direction we went with it, whether it went to the actual grid or whether it went to an off-grid system, such as the lighting that they have, modeled the best we could on the mini example. And then again, just kind of some grasp of, how this really does impact, I guess, our nation and our world. The size of some of those big turbines that you see, the weights on there just for like the tower alone is 19,000 pounds. The nacelle, so that box that kind of holds all the gears, close to 22,000 pounds. Each blade, close to 50 feet and 2,500 pounds. And big scale, kind of all together, we're approaching 50,000 pounds. So lots of jobs, lots of opportunities for these kids to be able to connect their project to real life examples.
Do this one. The history of the size. As you can see, in 1980, it was a very small wind turbine. I can't really read what the size will feet are on that, but as you can see, over time they get bigger and bigger. And one of the questions Dr. Stevenson had with me was what is onshore and offshore. You can't see it here, but it says future above those two, and one says offshore and one says onshore. What it means by that is like, well, pretty much offshore and onshore. An onshore one would be the ones in captions that you see, and then an offshore one would be one that you'd see out in the ocean. And those are actually very, very useful because you get a lot of wind off the water, so there's nothing stopping it or anything, so it's constantly going. So that's another big thing. And that picture, I believe, would be like today's date, 2016, around there. So. And then what questions do you guys have?
Members, do you have any questions for the council?
If you possibly wanted to take this project to the next level, we have a garage over at Gebhardt that has no power. So we store a tractor there in the wintertime, and if we could somehow use that power to charge a battery, because I was thinking of buying a solar panel, because they make those to, they charge by milliamps, so it's a very small amount, but just an idea.
I would think it would be nice to be able to use the energy for something. I mean, it's, part of our job as a school board is to be budgetarily conscious, so it would be important to know what the maintenance costs would be, and if it provides a benefit to the district as well. the educational for this year, obviously, was the presentation.
Any other questions?
At this time, we weren't asking for action, we were just
Yes.
kind of presenting the ideas. so.
Have you calculated if it's working, let's say, at optimal performance, how much energy it could produce?
We haven't got that far because we wanted to present it before we got all this actual information and stuff like that and move forward with it.
But you guys had shared that just the size, I'm sorry, maybe you were going to say that the size of it really wasn't large enough to provide a lot of energy back, which is why we talked about if we were to tie it to the grid, we'd want to do it with the solar panels, that we could actually see some product, I guess, for the work, because it's just not large enough to really get a lot of energy from. So, but the fact that we already own it was the other part of it that they talked about. It's now sitting in the Bragg's room, and so is it up better than not? And what kind of educational opportunities would that provide for the other kids? So.
Also, go ahead.
Like kind of to pair off of that, they are in the process of talking to Mr. Pipkin, and if you aren't familiar with what he does, he actually designed solar panel arrays. He works with electrician, basic electrical work, also welding, so that's kind of the next step of where Mike and AJ want to go, is to get that data. I think you guys have looked up the average wind speed in
The
town.
average wind speed in Black River Falls is actually 11 to 12 miles per hour.
And so one
which is a bit
struggle,
fast,
like we were saying, that we'll have with this one is the fact that it's about 27 feet in the air. And so for it even really to be practical at this size, we're talking we'd have to double that. It had to be 60 to 70 feet up for it to make sense, but it still is a really neat educational tool. I know they're the second group that's kind of gone through using it, and so it's something kids can, we want to connect it to something, I guess, was their big idea.
It was that, and it was about getting our name out there on being actually for wind energy and stuff like that, and it was for the educational purpose on teaching kids what you can do to your house, or when you're older or whatever, you can go green and not have to pay for much.
Any other questions? Excellent. Thanks so much for coming tonight.
Thank you. So, on to action items, the consent agenda. Did anybody have anything in there they would like to pull out?
I'd like to highlight a few things, and if people would like to pull them out for vote, they certainly can. As far as employment, we are accepting the retirement of Bob Brown, who's our custodian over at 4th Street, and he's actually retiring at the end of the school year, but has already shared that information with us. And then also we have 2 gifts that I'm asking for your acceptance. The football alumni, BRF football alumni are donating a trap chute for linemen. I don't know what that looks like, but I could have Googled it and found out, but a lineman trap chute. And then the letter club decided that they would like to upgrade that from a trap chute to a tunnel chute. And so the alumni donated the $2,500, and then the letter club is going to pay for the upgrade to the next level. And so would ask for your approval of those gifts. Additionally, trying something different, the feedback at the policy committee has been that after a policy goes through the policy committee and then first reading at the board, perhaps those could be put on as consent agenda if you did not have any corrections that you wanted from first reading to second reading. So I have done that for this month. I have included the second reading of those policies in the consent, and of course if you ever want to pull them out, we can, but in the spirit of efficiency, we thought we would try it this way.
Any questions or discussion? Would anybody like to make a motion?
I move to approve the consent agenda.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. So, moving on to the World Leadership Summits.
Excellent. We have Sarah Halverson here with us today who would like to share some information. She included an awful lot of information in your packet for you to look through. A lot of information for your perusal, but she would like to talk with you a little bit tonight. So
I always think more information is better than not enough
absolutely,
information. So,
absolutely.
I sent you quite a bit of information there. As you know, you might have known, I taught here for 10 years and then I left here for a while, and I'm back now this year. And when I was teaching in Pullman, this all started with Tom Chambers. When I taught here, he offered to send Mr. Wallen and I to Austria to do a teacher exchange, and we always wanted to do a bit more with that. And then I left the district, and as I went to Pullman, someone had connected me with this company and said, have you ever heard of the World Leadership Summit? This might fit well with what you're thinking about doing. So we kind of went with it, and I took a group of students this last summer, not thinking I would do this for a few more years. But as you can see in the packet that I sent you, I'm the family consumer teacher at the high school. I deal an awful lot with food. I try to get kids thinking about food quite a bit. And the whole summit is on the future of food and what we're looking at doing. So I thought I might try to see what your thoughts were with me taking a group of students in the summer of 2017. To Italy is where the actual summit ends, and before that there's a tour, and there's tours that they do. I think there's 12 different tours. The one that I would like to take kids on, I've given you guys the packets there. And we would start out in London for 2 days, and then we would move on to Paris for 2 days, and then into the Italy region for the rest of the summit and end there. What is a little bit different about this, actually we can go through this, it will explain some of this here. I'll just go through quickly, what is the summit? Why is this different than going through and doing an actual just travel abroad? Why travel is important, where we are going, our travel partner, the safety approach, what's included, what's not included in the price of this, and then how do we go about reserving our spots. Why travel? Why I'm passionate about travel. Before I had kids, my husband and I took a bunch of grad classes where we would travel, because we never did that in college, but I feel like it's really, really important, and now that I've taken kids, I've done some of these experiences, the kids have said it's a wonderful experience. The students that I took in Pullman, their parents were super excited about this because in order to go on a lot of trips, you have to be in a foreign language class. This did not allow them. You could go without being in a foreign language class. So it's another opportunity for students. Why this tour is great for our group? Well, clearly I'm looking at taking kids who have taken my classes or who are involved with my CTSO organization, which is the FCCLA group, or possibly have other teachers recommend them to go with on this trip. So I know who I'm taking on this trip. Helping students become global citizens. And I don't think watching the video is necessary, really, at this time. What to expect on the summit. So the summit ends, and they always get wonderful speakers. So the summit that I attended this last summer was on the future of education. So we got to listen to Sir Ken Robinson, and he spoke to us. We got to meet him and talk to him and go to his breakout sessions. Jane Goodall has spoken at these. Al Gore has spoken at these. They haven't released who will be speaking at this one yet. So that does include this trip is that end summit. So it's like a 2-day conference for these kids that come together from all over the world to talk about the future of our food. So immersive travel, not only will our touring be traveling to London and traveling to Paris and traveling to Florence and some of the other places that we'll go. But during that travel, we will get to explore different little venues with food. We'll get to go to some food factories. So you could travel, you could choose to travel to Spain, and they would have specific things that deal with food there on those travels. So that immersive travel there, where they would do some hands-on things where you would get to go, and you can see that in your packets that I gave you there. The thought leadership, again, I just explained the world-renowned speakers that come and the experts. And I was a little bit apprehensive about taking students, knowing that this conference, the end conference, would be on the future of education, because that's my interest as an educator, not knowing what they would be interested in it. They thought it was wonderful. They'd never really heard of Sir Ken, I had, but when I showed them and their parents the TED Talks and stuff, they were very much on board with this whole thing. So I don't know who it will be, but I'm sure it will be someone pretty amazing. The design thinking, if you've ever heard of design thinking, they teach it at Harvard and Yale. A lot of places like Google, they will do that. I was blown away. I use some of this in my classroom nowadays on how we can integrate those types of things. But they teach these high school kids this whole process here. There is a component, and that will be that next piece there, the online learning. So students can do this as an independent project before, during, or after the conference. They can get high school credit for it, and they can get college credit for it as well, if they choose to do a project with this. What does the future of food mean to us and to you guys? So some of the topics that we'll be covering at that whole conference and on the tour: feeding our planet, sustainability, health, well-being, and the nutrition components, food technology, and then the security of our food and how do we keep those types of things secure for people. And this is another video on the actual summit, which I don't know if it's necessary. If you feel like you want to watch it, you can, but
It's in the board packet, so you could have previewed it if they wanted, so.
Yeah. There we go. So some of the tour highlights, this would be if we chose to go to the Spain, France, Italy one. That is not the one that I am looking to go to beforehand, but those are just some of the things that they would do regarding immersing us into that food culture instead of just touring and going to Vatican City, which would be really cool and will be cool as well, but also showcasing that. It's obviously a passion of mine, but I know a lot of students also think about these things, and I get them thinking about our food systems and how we go about thinking about the future of our food. So why EF? Why go with this company? They're the only company that really has this leadership summit component that they offer. When I took kids this last summer, I was amazed at the different groups that came. Lots of different foreign language teachers brought kids that weren't in foreign language classes, just again to offer another travel opportunity for students. But EF did a fantastic job with every single thing that we did. From our trip ahead of time, since I'd never done this before with students, they worked every single detail out with us. A personal thing, there was the first Paris attack had happened, and of course the parents that were sending kids were very concerned about that and sending kids overseas. So I shot them off an email. They got right back to me and they said, if this is an issue, we will give them a voucher for a later travel. They keep safety at the number one forefront for their students and their travelers and their teachers that are going. Every single thing we missed I kind of knew because the time was really tight when we flew back into the States. We came into New York and I saw the line coming into customs and I thought we are never going to make our flight. So I got on the phone and right away they got us onto a different flight going into Madison instead of Minneapolis. And so they are there to work with us on every single detail. I felt very, very comfortable working with them, and you can go online and you can Google and you can search out all sorts of things about these different companies, and you will find good things and you will find some bad things, and I had nothing but a wonderful experience working with this company. So some of their commitment there that they just talk about, 24/7 tour director with us if something were to happen. If I were to get sick or a chaperone, students were to get sick, they're there to ensure safety. They're there to walk you through where you would go to get medical help or such things of that nature. Chaperones, they require you to have a chaperone for every 6 kids. So there you go, Marty. She's whispering to me. 24-hour emergency on-call service. So there's EF has actual places and offices in various countries all over the place, and all of the people that guide their tours can speak the native languages and do a fantastic job with us. And finding all sorts of interesting little niche things that are off the beaten path to do with our group. But definitely their approach to safety was key. They would tell us, we stayed in big groups most of the time, but they always told us all the things that we needed to know. Obviously not living there, sometimes you don't always know those sorts of things. So
how many kids did you take with you?
6. It was kind of a pilot for me at that point, thinking I might do a bigger group the next time, and then I jumped ship and came to another district.
Which we're very appreciative of, by the way.
So why group travel? Group travel keeps tours affordable, allowing more students to see the world. And they combine groups, so like I was with groups from Ohio and Indiana that were traveling on the specific tour that we took. And they try to keep those 2 like bus sizes and then a tour director for those groups. And then the tour choice, that flexibility there, and that's the tour. This is kind of the tour that I'm thinking of going on. You might say no to this group or to my decision to do this. You might say yes. I might ask them and they might say this tour is full. You might have to go to Spain or Greece or somewhere else. So that's just kind of how it works right now. But that's kind of the flexibility that we have and how many kids I decide to take. And then you get to meet students from all over the world and all over the country that come to this. And I think that was the part that my students loved the most. They loved seeing the Leaning Tower of Pisa, and they loved doing those sorts of things, but they still stay connected to all these kids from all over the world. And so then just talking about a little bit of what they do in their coverage. If there's ever a cancellation or something's interrupted, they provide vouchers for that, and they provide, so that your money is secure and you're not just getting ripped off with these types of things. Illnesses, accidents, if someone were to get sick, if there's deaths and someone can't go, these things are covered here. And so all, myself included and all my students, we got that coverage, which is $155. So it's wonderful, but they do a great job with working with us and making sure all these things are covered. So the We Share, the program that I talked about earlier, this is the project that students can do. And so they can take on a new issue. So I think about like the Brave School or doing an independent study. High school students could legitimately do these types of things and work with myself. They could work with another teacher, and they can do something before, on tour, and after tour. I saw some pretty cool things though that kids were doing from around the United States and around the world. And then they had them up on the big stage in front of thousands of kids presenting these projects. And it's pretty mind-blowing what high school students can come up with and can do. And that's how kids will get their credit, their high school credit and or their college credit if they so choose that option. What students are responsible for? So I know that's the big question. How much is this going to cost? That's the big thing all the time. So these are the things, is the spending money. So for additional tour experiences, their free time activities, anything they want to buy, beverages, lunch during the day. The breakfast meal and the dinner meal at the end of the day are always included. And they did a great job figuring out types of things that students would like. Kind of middle of the road cuisines for the most part, because we know sometimes high school students don't always want to be super adventurous, but things that would be somewhat unique to that country. And so that's what they suggest per day for that. And then tips, they always suggest the tips for the tour director, bus drivers, and the local guides. So like if you go to the Sistine Chapel, there would be tipping, and they collect all of that. Actually, we collect that, and the parents know all about that ahead of time. Obviously, the passport and visas, and we just needed the passports when we went. And so we would, if I have a parent meeting and this gets approved, I go through all of that stuff with them ahead of time. So passports, that would be a point I would go through with them, and making sure that that's all taken care of. But the kids get so excited about doing these things that they'll be getting their passports very quickly upon knowing if they could go or not. So what they get included in this, their round trip flights on major carriers, hotels with private bathrooms in them. And EF does a great job. When we were on tour, we stayed in a very upscale hotel in Milan when we were there. Then we stayed in some very quaint mom and pop type of places when we were in Florence. And then in Davos, Switzerland, we stayed in some resort type of things in the mountains, highest city in Europe. And so that was, they like to give you a very good variety for your money there. Breakfast and dinner daily, comfortable motor coach for when you're touring in the country, global travel protection plan, a full-time bilingual tour director, and they're wonderful. Those directors that we've had were fantastic working with us. An educational itinerary, so again, it's not just going through and visiting and touring all sorts of different things. You can look at your sheet that I gave you there, and there's all sorts of things that we're going to be doing regarding the future of food. Sightseeing, led by the licensed local guides that are there, and they tell you all sorts of fabulous things as well. Entrance fees to select attractions, and a lot of that is included in the tour. And then the We Share EF's online platform for that deeper learning experience if they choose to share those things and get the credits for them. And they do payment options, so you can see the payment options there. They will take your money. So, and I believe she might have shared with you guys, with the board members, some information regarding like all sorts of fine stuff that you can go through and breeze through if you want to. But then I gave you guys this here, which I don't believe she shared with you, the actual tour that I would like to take students on. So it wouldn't be for this summer, it would be for the summer of 2017, leaving on June 29th, coming back on July 10th. And so just a few last things that I want to share with you. This summit, they offer 2 summits a year. One happens in March typically, and one happens in the summer. So I won't be taking kids out of school. It wouldn't be, I won't be pulling teachers out of school. So it's really giving up their time and my time in the summer to go. They could receive high school college credits. Again, it's another way for students who are in a non-foreign language class to possibly go on tour. This specific summit fits very seamlessly into the curriculum that I teach with foods, issues, trends, leadership, and the design thinking model. Wonderful keynote speakers that we will possibly get to see and meet. And some things to think about, obviously we have to think about the cost for students as well. And I know that doesn't always fit into everyone's budget, but we have to also recognize that opportunity does cost money.
What would be the kind of the price that you're thinking?
The price for this specific trip is $5,100.
Okay. And when would you ideally like to see it approved so that kids can start saving money, or are you thinking any fundraising plans?
Well, fundraising, my last school, I offered fundraising, and all the parents said the amount of fundraising that we do, and kids working themselves, asking for money for Christmas, asking for money for their birthdays, and saving their money, none of them wanted to participate in fundraising. So I said, okay, but there are opportunities that we can offer some fundraising things for them as well.
We did put it on as an action item tonight. Sarah had so much extensive background information. I felt like if you had questions, you certainly would have the information to get it answered. It's certainly not a time crunch that we need action tonight, but felt like if you had enough information to make that decision, again, the more advance notice to give people, the better.
Yep. And if this does get approved, I would ideally like to have a parent meeting right after our next parent-teacher conference, so that we have parents there already. They could come and get information at that meeting. It's kind of a good way to get parents there. So that's kind of my, I didn't need it necessarily approved, but that's, I believe our parent-teacher conference is in March, so, right?
When you went with Holman, how did you, well, you probably only needed one yourself then?
Yep, it was just myself.
Okay.
And we had other teachers that were willing to go at that point, but there was 3 other trips that the school was taking kids on, and a lot of it wasn't necessarily the money for students, but that they had other commitments already. But again, it comes to choice.
What were the dates again, Sarah?
June 29th through July 10th.
It's in the packet.
Yeah, I believe it
Seen it
says.
somewhere, but I can't. Are there any more questions? Or
Do you have to have a minimum number of students that go usually?
Typically not. You know, it's something that as I guess we start to fill spots, you know, we'll kind of look at that and see. But I have 3 teachers at the high school who are willing to go and chaperone if we get that amount of numbers.
And there's no minimum, so if 1 or 2 students decide to go, that wouldn't be a problem.
any other questions? If not, is there a motion to approve this?
I would make that motion to approve.
And is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay. All in favor?
Yes.
Yes.
All right, thank you.
All right. Before Sarah leaves, I just got an email today that Sarah, I meant it when I said we're very, very glad that Sarah decided to rejoin us. She really is a dynamic person, if you haven't gathered that just from the conversation here this evening. But got an email today that she applied for the WXOW Tools for Schools, and she was chosen as the Tools for Schools winner for the month of February, and so she and her department are going to get a $500 check. They want to come and do some videotaping and present her, we hope it's one of those great big checks, right? And of course she's going to spend it on something as completely frivolous as a new dryer for family consumer in the room. So I appreciate your willingness to go out and seek external funds for your program as well. So congratulations on winning the Tools for Schools.
Thank you very much. Okay, so up next, budget center allocations.
Jill's going to chat about this one.
If it's okay with the board, I might combine 10.2 with it as well. Just kind of makes sense to kind of give you the overall picture and the other pieces of the budget at the same time, if that's okay.
Makes sense to me.
I hear you volunteering to chaperone.
I am.
Be done.
She was talking about the budget.
Oh, you're volunteering for the budget.
That's a hard act
You
to
didn't
follow.
get that, All right. I just wanted to share this sheet with the board. This is the budget forecast model that I use to project forward to next year and future years. And while it gives an okay picture on future years, they don't put a lot of stock into those numbers. The numbers in red are the deficit in those future years, and I'm not even going to show you out any further than that because a lot of things change. I don't always know how much per pupil we're going to get and how many students we have. It goes out far enough where those kids aren't even born yet. So, it's just a matter of giving you a tool to look ahead. But I'm really concentrating on 16, 17, which is the column to the right of the orange column. And as you can see in red, we're looking at a starting deficit of $326,000. Some of the assumptions used to come to that deficit are, I used a total salary increase of 2%, and I'm using 10% increase for health insurance and 5% increase for dental. We are having a couple of health insurance advisory committee meetings over the next couple of months to try to look at that health insurance and see if there's different ways we can do it. Patty and I have been talking about even another possibility to the way we do business with medical care and health insurance. So we're going to look at all these different options and see what we can come up with. I will tell you that 10% probably is not super realistic unless we do make some changes. We did not have the best trend so far this past year. We had kind of a bad year, so it's not even something we want to go out and look for bids. We just did that the year prior. And when you're with a company, they don't want you to jump ship every other year either, so that doesn't look good for us either. And even when we did do those bids a couple of years ago, not even a couple of years ago, a year and a half ago, a year ago, we didn't have that many that wanted to take us on as a book of business either. So that's kind of our bad health insurance story, but that is going to affect that number. Could affect it worse, but we're going to see what we can do in our plan change.
We started with an 8% increase, and then we met with Bill Hines, our insurance person, and he said, when Jill said a tough year, we've just had some very serious illnesses of several staff members, and when you have a group as large as the district does, that's bound to happen. It just piled up an awful lot this year, which is heartbreaking for the families involved, but certainly has a significant impact on the whole picture as well. And so we're hoping 10% is a little closer to where we'll land, but we won't know that for sure till the end of March. Beginning of April is usually when we get our actual increased number. So
yes. What I am going to share with you, the one thing that we do, we have to keep moving forward with the budget process. We usually in February have this agenda item on for review, the budget center allocations, review and approval by the board. Sorry, I can't talk and click very well. In the packet, I had proposed that we freeze the budget centers.
Speaking of frozen.
Click on the right thing. This picture is the building budget center. So each of our school buildings, I don't know what's going on, I can't get things to. We had slightly reduced the per student amount. That's how we build their budget centers. We do a per student amount and then multiply it by an estimated number of students that they're going to have the next year. So in 15-16, you can see above the different amounts per student. And the differences between basically the middle school and high school are they have shop classes and labs and family consumer ed. You get into high school, they have even more of that, so their per student amount is a little bit higher. And we did bring it down by quite a bit in 14-15 because we pulled out the athletics piece. We have a separate budget center for the high school and middle school athletics and extracurricular activities. So in looking forward for 16-17, these are from projections that I have in a cohort survival method trending. We would look forward to the high school having about 531s for students in 16-17, middle school 416, Gebhardt 240, 3rd Street 271, 4th Street 259, and know that these two will be combined in a budget next year. But I left them separate right now so that Rick and Laura can work with their staffs in building those budgets independently right now too. So what that would do, and this isn't uncommon, because we are a little bit of a declining enrollment, that we would reduce all of the building budget centers in total by about $17,000. Our actual enrollment, that was the biggest thing, we had estimated that it would be 1838 for this year, and it actually was only 1778 for FTEs. So we had quite a drop in students this past year for this September. So that contributed to it more because it looked like we were going to have more students. They got more money in their budgets, and then those students really.
And they didn't complain, but they got more.
They got more money than what they actually had for enrollments. And the reason we do this early is because they start working with their staffs and start building those budgets now already. They meet with me prior to the end of the school year, and we talk about what they're budgeting for and what they're looking for the next year. So. And then all of our other budget centers, we have about 80 other budget centers that we were just saying, we would just freeze those total dollar amounts from what they are this year going forward to next year. Whether it's capital maintenance or our transportation budget or our small school-age parent budget, whatever it might be. So we have different budget centers for all those different purposes.
As I mentioned that, we often do some bartering when it comes to expenses in the buildings, that Stephanie will look at her C&I budget, or Joe looks at his maintenance budget when there's something that comes up in a building, we're like, okay, so if you could pay for the substitute, we can pay for the registration fee. And so we try to do some supporting, so that even though the building allocation is virtually unchanged, we do try to not have to say no all the time during the course of the year. And the budget center being set now, a year from now, some need could come up in a building that we have no idea about. And so we certainly work together to make sure that we can make it work when that time comes. But they need a budgeting number, and it's always based on their per pupil. So.
Remind me again, what's included in Fund 10?
Fund 10 is basically our operations budget, includes everything except food service, except our debt service payments.
And that small community service fund.
Small community service fund, but includes scholarships are not in there, or gifts, but includes everything else. So our utilities, maintenance, teacher salaries, aide salaries, custodians, everything else. We are working on that deficit number that I showed you. We've been meeting administratively for the past few months. We hope to have some recommendations for you next month so that you can look at those. But we're still trying to pare down that $326,000. This would be part of it. We would take off about $17,000 of that $326,000. So, yeah. We have some other ideas.
So you would be looking for a motion to freeze, or to
accept the building budget allocations is what we'd be looking for right now.
Okay.
I just have one more question. I'm assuming that just because student numbers aren't dropping, all the expenses do not drop. Are there some things that do go down?
There are a few things, like sometimes some grade levels still purchase student consumables in the form of like textbooks, workbooks, not nearly as often as we used to, but there are some workbooks where, or even like student planners, or, so there are some real direct per pupil expenses, but more of them are general. We're going to order 5 cases of paper, and we might have some left over at the end of the year. So it's not a direct one-to-one, but it is some figure to shoot at when you're looking at a building. And then, again, there are some direct student costs. When she showed the per pupil allocation, the reason Gebhardt went up money from the forestry was because, and Third Street, Gebhardt was doing a ton of field trips. And so at the time, the board said, we don't want to keep asking parents for money every time a field trip comes up. Let's add to their student activity fee in the beginning of the year, and then not ask them for money every time a field trip comes up. So their field trips are included as kind of a direct student cost that would be included in that amount. So. Any other questions? We will come back with at least our first shot at balancing that. I would just throw out there, when you showed the other sheet that showed, would you mind going back to 10.1 quick? So if you look at 15-16, it's got 0 in the red because we're obviously operating under a balanced budget right now. When we project forward to 16-17, again, our initial crystal ball estimates is that we would be at a deficit of $326,928. The numbers below that, the fund balance in this year, 15-16, our fund balance is currently at 25.67% of our operating budget. We have by board policy that our fund balance will remain at 22% or 21? I think it's 21% of our operating expenses. The last 2 years that we've gone through the budgeting process, we've gotten very, very, very close to a balanced budget, and then we've said, this last little bit of carryover, perhaps we could dip into fund balance to balance that last piece, because we are tapped out of ideas to maintain quality of programming and still be able to balance that. And we have not had to use it in the end because of so many variables that happen from one year to the next. Our crystal ball, maybe more kids came, maybe fuel costs went down, maybe we hired teachers less expensive than ones that left, maybe, any number of things could have happened. And so we've not needed to dip into that fund balance. So as you can see, it continues to grow. And I always say this because I don't think we can toot our horn often enough. There are over half the districts in the state that have to do short-term borrowing during the course of the school year to pay their salaries and benefits on a monthly basis. We are so far removed from that. We have a very, very healthy fund balance. And so I share that not because we didn't get to this point by being careless with that fund balance, But I also know that we've been in a deficit mode for going on double-digit years now, and at some point we need to, we can't continue to expand and broaden programming and opportunities for kids if we continue to have to reduce at such a significant amount. And so I perhaps share that with you so that if we get to the point that we have to ask for some money out of fund balance to balance, it won't be a conversation out of left field. We've asked in the past and you've granted approval, and then we have not needed to do that the last couple of years. So we need a motion on the budget center allocations, and then the preliminary budget was just for your information, and we'll be bringing back a lot more detail for you in March.
Would like to make that motion?
I so move to approve the budget allocations.
And is there a second?
Who was the second?
Penny.
Okay.
All in favor? Great. And so on to capital maintenance projects.
And Joe is here to talk with us as well.
I believe all of you have received a copy of this, so I can just pretty much answer questions that you have. It's a fairly ambitious capital maintenance list because of all the activity that's going to be going on this summer. We're actually going to move a lot of stuff around in 4 schools, so it's going to be a challenge.
They're hiring some good muscle for your summer help,
That's
right? So it is broken down by building, and the total amount for each building is included on there. I don't know if you want to speak to anything in particular, if you want to ask questions, do you want me to summarize each building, or what's your pleasure here?
Well, some of the, like that chiller repair there, that's something that we've kind of band-aided for a long time. It may not cost $8,000, but there's some upkeep that needs to be done to that chiller in Forest Street. It's important because we have elementary summer school in there, and some of the days would be unbearable. Stage curtains, we haven't cleaned stage curtains, and they're pretty filthy. So I'm actually teaming up with Holman and West Salem, and we're getting a much reduced rate on our cleaning because we're going with. I belong to a buildings and ground group that we have 15 different districts, and once a month we meet and we share ideas, and sometimes we group together and get things that are more reasonable cost. Otherwise, there's a lot of carpet. Those bottle filling stations, water fountains are very popular, so we're going to add another one of those to Forest Street this year, and the new school will be there'll be some in there. The gym roof at Gebhardt is one of the bigger ones. It's underneath the shingles. There's something going on there where the wood warped, and you can tear into it to find out it's leaked a little bit, but it wasn't nothing serious. But it's going to get to that point if we don't do something with it. You'd see some new doors here. We have some doors and frames that are in pretty bad shape. For instance, to the boiler room at 4th Street. The frame is just rusted away. We just need to replace it and replace the doors because they're the same. We did a lot of work in the engineering lab this summer, really quickly. We added a wall and a door and a window and changed some things around, and now it's time to change the flooring in there to make that a really nice space. You see a lot of ceiling tiles in here. We're getting to the point where we can see the end of needing ceiling tiles because we've used a lot of them. Looking at possibly doing the flooring on the first floor, the hallways of the middle school with VCT type tile like the high school. That carpet's pretty wore, and it's time for a change, but we'll have to discuss colors, and Shelley don't let me pick colors anymore.
Don't make me show them pictures.
Yeah,
Don't make me show them pictures, Joe.
Enough said.
You brought it up.
Any questions on specific things that we can? No.
Cement pads for the roof drains, that's to try to get the water further away from the building, correct?
Yes.
I was going to do it during my district admin report, but while we're talking about water in the high school, while we had Myron there and the engineers, all that stuff, remember we've talked about that water in the basement. I don't know how many times they finally have the long-term solution. It is fixed, and I hope you are as happily surprised by the total price tag as I was. Grand total for all of that work that people have talked about for years, $37,000, and it's the long-term fix. And I just think, why wasn't that 37 spent years and years and years ago? Years ago. So they have, I mean, they cut in the cement, put a much larger pump in there, and they ran the drainage up and through. It is the long-term fix for sure. And we've had several instances of wet that it has been going dry down in that basement. And so we still have dehumidifiers down there just because it's been damp for so long. And we still store some of the sweaty athletic equipment and that kind of stuff down there. But the long-term fix is finally there. So that's really exciting.
And another big benefit of the remodel was we emptied out the storerooms down there. We cleaned them all up. There's no electrical panels in there. Now it's a nicer space. I mean, it's not the Taj Mahal yet, but I mean,
it's not underwater.
It's drier. It feels much more comfortable down there.
Right. So that was exciting.
And I wanted to share that, you know, over the past 5 years, 6 years probably, we've put in a lot of LED lighting. All the exterior lights in all the buildings are almost all LED now. All the street lights are LED. And in 6 years, we have not had one failure in LED lighting. So it has come up pretty big, and it's 1/6 the cost to operate those lights. And if you don't have failures to replace, that's a big deal. So I was pleasantly surprised that they were that good.
What is the estimated life on those exterior lights?
20 years. And now they have, if you replace, say a 400 watt metal halide fixture, now LED fixtures are not anymore. They've all come to a center point, and so we can replace the LEDs just as cheap. That's why any fixture that would go bad now, we just put an LED fixture in the place of it because the cost's the same. We are doing a couple bathrooms in the high school that have the old lights, and it's in here to replace those lights, and I'm going to put some type of LED fixture in there. But in the new school, I asked them to put dimmers on everything because LED lights, if not quite engineered perfectly, can be so bright and it could be annoying. We have a ISS room at the high school. It's so bright, man. So we got to be careful of that. So hopefully we're going to put dimmers in, and so we're able to control that a little bit. There's one here, more ventilation in the art rooms. She runs a kiln and things like that. It gets warm in there, so we're gonna have something that she can control. She just can use it while she's working. And then there's another big one is we have a big problem at the very other end of the school from the hot water heaters. It takes forever for hot water to get there. And I think, is she still here?
She just left.
Oh, Sarah, I said, well, I gotta run my water. Well, you know, water costs money now. So if you have to run all those faucets for 15 minutes before you can get hot water, that's a problem. So I'd like to put a point of use hot water heater somewhere in the high school. You have to figure out where, somewhere in the vicinity of the face room, so when they turn it on, they can get instant hot water. Because, you know, water is expensive now. I don't know what I pay a month, but it's gotta be close to $5,000 a month and more for water.
Have you looked into a circulating pump? So you'd have hot water, in a sense, on demand all the time?
Yeah, there's so much cost in piping because it wasn't original. And, you know, we have those pipes running through the tunnels. But that is an option, you know. I probably have to, you know, see which is the best way to go.
In the capital maintenance list, I know Jill and Joe took a real scrutinized look at the high school just because there was such a huge project upgrade last year with the referendum, but the parts that didn't get touched by the referendum, there was so much maintenance work done last summer, they didn't get touched by anything, and so really tried to make sure that the rest of it looks just as polished as those new areas. So there's an awful lot of smaller things at the high school, but it will be good to bring them all up to snow.
And we have a little, in the middle school, there's rusty beams in between the fitness center, that's the fitness center now, and the pool area up above, all that chlorinated air, you know. There's also some brick repair I have to do in the middle school, because years back when the middle school was first built, they had a positive pressure in the middle school pool area, which pushed all that chlorinated gas through the brick walls, and it rusted away the clips that hold the brick on. And there's some sections there that are, if you go on the roof and look, it goes So we have to tackle a small section this summer, and then after the new school's done, and then we'll have to seriously look at that. I don't believe it's any safety hazard, but it's something we're gonna have to look at. Otherwise, the rest is pretty much just upgrades of things.
It does include a district office remodel to move the boardroom up to the larger spaces upstairs, so that there would actually be separate meeting spaces available, plus a boardroom in which half the people didn't have their back to the other half of the people, and so on. And so that is also included in one of the projects. So.
And the last thing I'd like to talk about is the clock system. I've researched clock systems, and Primex is one of the big clock systems, but for relatively inexpensive, and we're going to get that kind of system at the new school. You can put a head unit clock system in, and probably about 25 clocks for about $5,000. And that's a synced up system. Your clocks will always be right. The nice thing about the elementary school, being that we're building it, is that all the clocks will be 120 volt clocks. You never have to change a battery, but they're all synced with that head unit. And we're actually putting some LED clocks in the hallways, correct? But all the classrooms will have analog, so the kids will learn how to tell time. So I'm going to try to do a small project at the middle school. We've had so many clock problems. We have bought atomic clocks for years. Well, about 4 years ago I quit buying them because they just don't work. You know, once it gets messed up with the atomic clock, you have to put them in the window. You've probably seen this one wrong so many times. But anyways, we're going to go to those kind of clock systems eventually, at a pretty reasonable price. That's about it.
Any other questions for Joe? All right, so do we have a motion to approve the capital maintenance projects? And a second?
Second.
And is everybody in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Joe. And so on to our district administrator's report.
All right, just a couple things for you. Chad was greeted this morning with a little challenge for Forest Street tomorrow, but in fine style, they've got it taken care of. I don't know if you drove past the front of Forest Street School today, but a water main broke out front, and so a little river is running pretty consistently in the gutter closest to the school. And so they called, and the street department was great about communicating with Chad, but they're going to shut down water. The building will have no water for about 2 hours tomorrow, but Jill and Chad both worked with Connie Sieber, and they're going to do some sack lunches for the kids. And I said, of course, we could tell all the kids to go to the bathroom first, but if you tell a 5-year-old you can't use the toilet for 2 hours, that's all they're going to think about for 2 hours is how bad they have to go to the bathroom. So Chad's got a plan, and his custodian has tried some things out that apparently 5-gallon buckets of water. When you first mentioned 5-gallon buckets, my mind was reeling, I'm not going to lie. But then he finished the story and said that if you just dump some water into the tank, it will flush, and that made a lot more sense to me than the 5-gallon bucket. So they're ready for that challenge tomorrow. I also wanted to highlight for everyone on March 28th, the Black River Lions Club has actually asked if they could tour Red Creek Elementary. And so I know that some of your schedules are very difficult for our 3 o'clock tours. They're going to do one starting at 5:30 in the evening on Monday, March 28th. So 5:30 p.m. On the 28th. I'm going to notice it as a special board meeting, assuming that several board members will be able to make it. And then the Lions Club will also be touring along with us. And our friends from Myron are very happy to walk us through that as well. We got a sneak peek again today, and wow, it's just amazing that you look one direction and it is nowhere near completed. It's rough construction, and then you walk in the bathroom and they already have the bathroom tile all done and flashy looking, and it's just fun to watch, A reminder that February 25th is that grand opening of the Lunda Community Center, and so we will be honoring all of those who have been head basketball coaches in the Sam Young Gymnasium. We sent out invitations to all those people. I've gotten a couple RSVPs back, but I think Marty and I are going to have to start harassing them a little bit for some responses to see who's going to be here. And then through social media and the radio spot and the newspaper, we're inviting all alumni to come and celebrate that night as well. So looking forward to that community celebration on the 25th. Remember, that's also the night of the taco supper, so if you want to go have tacos first and listen to all different musical ensembles, you can do that, and then the game starts at 7:30. I wanted to highlight the London Charitable Trust has given a $2,000 grant to the Black River Swim Club, and the grant did not come to the district, so we didn't have to accept it as a gift or grant, but I wanted to note it because remember, the swim team is completely funding the high school swim team. The youth swim organization is funding the high school swim team, and so that was very generous that the Linda Charitable Trust gave them a $2,000 grant, which they will use to pay us for the expenses of the team, but that was still very generous. And then just one last note from me before the principals take over. I was contacted by an Ava from DPI, and they are asking if they could use the school district of Black River Falls as a case study as they work with other districts throughout the state that serve Native American populations. They said that they have received an awful lot of positive feedback from parents and from other districts and from the tribe that they the tribal council that they work with about some of the great practices and policies in our district, and have asked if we would be willing to be a model as they move to other districts. So of course that was an easy yes, we'd be happy to help and happy to work with you. So that will be coming up this spring yet. So take to the buildings.
Okay, for forestry, I guess not a lot going on right now, being midwinter and whatnot, but we just got done with a Valentine's dinner for the parents. We had about 200 parents come in on Friday to participate in our, I guess, our lasagna meal that we had. So it was a pretty good event, pretty good turnout, that kind of stuff. Coming up, we've got March 10th, we've got another family night. That's going to be a Dr. Seuss is the theme for that. We're hoping to have as good a turnout as usual for that. So if you have time on your calendar, if you can swing by 5:30, check out family night, that'd be great. We've got Thursday, we're doing some PBIS celebration type stuff. We're kind of doing some rewards for the kids, meeting some milestones. We've been keeping track of our Tiger tickets lately, and we've got this cylinder in the LMC where if we have so many Tiger tickets, if we get up so high in the cylinder, we have some school-wide incentives, and we kind of hit that first milestone for our first school-wide incentive, and that's going to be like a crazy hat and a crazy hair day for the kids, and they're pretty pumped up about that. They're pretty proud of their Tiger tickets and so forth. So I guess one event recently and 2 big events coming up. Other than that, we're just looking forward to some year-end planning stuff already. We already started our scheduling process for next year, and actually we're talking more about that at our building leadership team tomorrow night and whatnot. So we're going to be working on some of those things. It's kind of a long process, so we got to get that ball rolling as well. So for 4th Street.
All right, 3rd Street, a couple things to highlight. One is our reading incentives, and we've decided this year to have a monthly reading incentive, and as we'll talk a little bit with our reading piece a little later on with their improvement. Really trying to find some creative ways to get kids reading outside of school, and this last month, and Stephanie Briggan's been our person spearheading these incentives, and this month was Dress If They Reach Their Goal, which they did, which was 10, they got to dress up as their favorite book character, and they absolutely loved it. 2nd and 3rd graders just had a blast with that, and they had a little parade through the school with the kids that all dressed up as their favorite book character, and it was pretty fun with that. And this month's incentive is Winter Wonderland, so again, if they reach their monthly goal, and they are just driven to reach that goal, which is pretty fun to see. And that's the reading they do outside of school, and it's pretty rigorous. It's a lot of time for them to spend, but they're up to the challenge, so it's a lot of fun. So Winter Wonderland, they get to do a lot of fun winter activities, sledding and things like that on a day after this month, if they reach their goal, which I'm pretty confident they will.
So it's 60,000 minutes for January, and 60,000 again for February. So
they ended up reading almost 80,000 for January.
Yeah. I think middle of the month we kind of scared them to say, oh, we're a long ways away, and man, they're reading minutes just poured right in.
So yeah, it's pretty fun. We had jump rope for art this last week. Again, 2nd and 3rd graders were really up to the challenge, and Third Street School raised over $11,000 for jump rope for heart, which was pretty amazing. And I think every $100 they say, I'm going off my memory, is 6 lives, I think, something like that. So imagine what $11,000 does. It's pretty remarkable. They get these little rubber dogs as they reach different milestones with that. And boy, those are pretty. First one they get with a $5 donation, and so a lot of little puppies going around our school, so they're pretty proud of that. Kids saying I spent my own $5 of my own money and I got my own dog, and they were pretty but for the cause for sure as well. School forest trips coming up with our grades. Lots of fun with that too. So some good things going on 3rd Street too. Having fun in these winter months.
Not that there was any competition going on between 3rd Street and Gebhardt, but when I found out that 3rd Street collected so much money, but the principal did not jump, we win. No? I didn't do the speed, but I did the long rope, and so didn't embarrass myself, so it was good. Gebhardt collected $8,900, so that was pretty awesome. They had a really good time. Trying to jump with that long rope, doing the whole class. So half the gym, it was the speed jumping going on, and we had some nice parent volunteers to come in and help us with that. And then on the other end, a different class was doing 2 at a time, in and out, 4, 8, and eventually the whole class. So that was pretty fun. This week on Thursday and next week Tuesday, we have our parent-teacher conferences at Gebhardt. And this week we also have our Vogel book fair going on. So that's always pretty popular with the kids and families. This week we also have our 4th graders heading to the school forest. So they're doing some snowshoeing and hot chocolate and things like that. And just update, there is going to be a Red Creek visit on March 1st for a few of our teaching staff, so, and then again, so by the time you go on the 25th, I think? 8th, sorry.
What time are you on the 1st? Because if they want to join you on the 1st, they certainly can.
Absolutely.
So what time?
3:15.
Okay.
3:15 on March 1st.
But if more than half of you can go, I need to know so I can post the meeting, just so
It's just phenomenal. We were just there 2-3 weeks ago, and wow, it's just incredible. So I highly encourage you to go to both, because you'll see big changes. So.
At the middle school, over the last month or so, a couple of months prior, and then coming up, we are finishing up 2nd semester parent-teacher conferences. We held our first round last Monday night, and then tomorrow night we have conferences again from 3:30 to 7 p.m. Typically attendance does drop off a little bit in the 2nd semester parent-teacher conferences, so we're always looking for ways to get parents motivated to come in and take some time to spend with teachers. A lot of communication does happen via email and phone calls, yet it's nice to do a face-to-face too with your student's teacher. We finished up our mini courses at the end of January with no major injuries by staff or students, so that was very exciting. You probably saw some of that in the newspaper. Kids had a great time doing many new things and exploring different interests and tastes, and it was really a well-planned event. And again, Jenny Krista does the lion's share, 7th grade math teacher up there, so she does an outstanding job of getting all that organized. We too have a Tiger Way incentive coming up at the end of this quarter, and we told students that we're doing a trip, a half-day trip, each grade level to the roller rink in Hatfield. Students have to be passing all their classes and maintain their power pass, and you lose your power pass by getting the 4th tardy in any one quarter. So the 6th graders are kind of cute too. They're really excited about stuff like that. Even the 8th graders who are kind of cool, you know, they won't admit it, but they think that it's fun going roller skating. So That's at no cost to the students either. I think we charge them $1 to get on the bus, just to help out a little bit. So our Tiger Way committee meets once a month, and every month, as per the guidelines, we're supposed to come up with an incentive, building-wide incentive, and I certainly think that is achievable by the majority, if not 100% of our students. I've got to put some work into it, but they can certainly pass all their classes and work on those tardies. We finished up STAR testing in January, just a few weeks ago, and I've been going around to meet with each grade level, taking on doing mid-year data reviews with them and looking at the data and seeing what we can do to improve student learning, to increase student achievement, and as we'll see shortly, our continuous school improvement plan is showing some gains, some results being made in math and reading at all 3 grade levels. The new special ed alt ed program is up and running. We have the Nexus 2.0 it's called, and that's currently down in the portables in Forest Street. 5 students currently in that program, run by Mike Geyer, and Steve Teeples is the full-time aide down there. And lastly, we had Kelly Schulte, our Phi Ed teacher, organized a fundraiser for the American Heart Association, and students were to, if you achieve X number of dollars of fundraising, they get to take part in a all-school dodgeball tournament. It sounds worse than it is. So what happened is we got the entire student body into the gym, and I think we had like 15 7th and 8th graders, and then we had another 20 or 25 6th graders. So we split the teams up a little bit, and we had 6th and 7th graders take on the 8th graders for dodgeball, and it was pretty fun, and nobody was harmed. We used very soft, cushy balls for that. So
how many times in your report do you say, and nobody was injured? Right? It is middle school. But we
just had a note come out today from the secretaries. We have 4 kids on crutches and full of boots currently in the building, so thank goodness for the elevator. But yeah, we have kids around on crutches and boots. It's the time of year where they're out snowboarding and breaking wrists and ankles and stuff like that. And, you know, it's just middle school stuff, so it's all good.
Thanks, Dave.
All right, no broken bones in the high school either. On the 17th, next week, we have a blood drive. The FCCLA is organizing their next blood drive, so if you would like to give blood, contact Sarah Alverson. She can get you an appointment. Also, due to that, our Student of the Month breakfast has been moved to the following Wednesday, the 24th, so that's our Student of the Month breakfast, which is always a fun day. Also, we received some good news from the Department of Public Instruction, the NTO STEM grant, which stands for the Non-Traditional Occupation Science, Technology, Engineering, and Math grant, was awarded to Black River Falls in the amount of $7,000. And that is a grant that was written by Mary Burns and myself in collaboration with Jerry Bowers, who owns JB Systems out of Eau Claire. They are a computer programming and design company, and the purpose of the grant is to get students involved and interested in non-traditional occupations such as computer programming for females or for minorities. And so we've recruited a group of 15 and we're hoping to expand that to about 18 or 20 students who will work with Mr. Bowers and his company in developing some computer programming codes and things, and specifically geared towards enhancements that we would like to see with our student recording and reporting programs, so with Skyward and Canvas. So we are currently have named a CEO of the group. One of our students, named Pardo, is going to be heading that group up. We have about 4 different committees, each with a head person on that committee, and it's really being student-driven. They had a phone conference with Mr. Bowers last week, and on March 3rd they've got another meeting set up to work with him, and in the meantime they're surveying teachers and students about what they would like to see as far as enhancements and features in Skyward and Canvas, and put together information on that and actually program it to code that to enhance those programs. So pretty exciting project there. Also want to remind you that we have the ACT and the Work Keys testing coming up. The ACT test is on March 1st. The Work Keys is on March 2nd. And our ACT testing is the juniors, and we're asking that just the juniors attend for that day. That's testing from 8 o'clock in the morning until 1 o'clock in the afternoon. And we realized that last year they did that, and we're looking at changing that to all students attending in the future. But our plan is to this year have a group get together, the freshman professional learning communities group that we have that's been meeting throughout the year. Those teachers will get together on the first this year and plan for bringing in the freshmen only on that first day of school next year, and then not bringing them in on March 1st, but on March 1st bringing all the other students in. So we end up having the same number of days for all the students. And on March 1st, the sophomores and seniors would have other activities that they'd be doing, career planning and maybe a career fair for the sophomores, and for the seniors, some volunteer work, some community service work led by NHS or in collaboration with Interfaith and so on. So we're looking at doing some of that planning through the group, the freshman teacher group on March 1st, but also today we set our school improvement date for March 18th, and we'll be doing some more planning that day as well for those days next year for that WKC, or excuse me, the ACT plan testing. Also, Dr. Stevenson mentioned the 24th of February is our first basketball game in the new Lunda Fieldhouse.
25th.
I'm sorry, 25th.
I panicked for a second.
Yeah, sorry. 24th is the student month. The 25th, so hopefully we'll get everybody out to cheer on the Tigers for that game. Okay.
Okay. This past Friday at our professional development day, the PBIS team got to meet with the staff for about an hour or so and started to again kind of roll out the philosophy behind PBIS, and I just want to focus on the philosophy because though PBIS is kind of a two-pronged part. In other words, you first approach it from the logistic standpoint of defining major and minor behaviors and what is exactly the Tiger Way and what does it look like to be respectful and responsible, safe at the high school. But on the other side is the philosophy side, and that actually has taken a little bit more time, I think, at the high school. There's a mind shift, I think, that is taking place, and we're kind of working on it both from the PBIS team, but then also from my office as well, kind of more in best practices. But one of the first things that PBIS teaches you is, we don't change the students, we change our responses to their behavior. And then by changing our responses, obviously we hope then that student behavior improves. So if you really think about that concept, it really is kind of a mind shift. So like I said, we're spending a lot of PD time on that. From my office, a lot of best practices for teachers to kind of use in their classrooms. I know Tom and I spend a lot of time talking how we can help foster teacher-student relationships and how we can basically help support them on that. So also kind of in the same wheelhouse, we're looking at RTI, which is response to intervention, is kind of more the academic support for students. And we will be meeting here in the next couple weeks with a small team to talk about ways that we can kind of systematically perhaps do a little bit more support for students in the general ed classroom. So, and one other thing is March 15th, I believe, is our spring parent-teacher conferences that start at 3:30. So, thanks.
All right, thank you very much.
Brings us to
we are, let me see.
strategic planning.
Oh yes, because we jumped ahead.
We did. So the last item is strategic plan update, building continuous improvement plan. So as far as strategic plan update, I included in your packet just a sample agenda that we can talk about in just a little bit. But the continuous improvement plans from each of the buildings is kind of that first order. And I am going to ask the principals to do kind of a joint presentation there. If you recall, we tried to align this to the 4 pillars of the strategic plan as well. And so we start off at the beginning. There you go. We start off at the beginning with our big overriding goals for reading and math. And we've been consistent with these goals the last couple of years, but increase the percentage of students that are at or above grade level by 5% from spring to spring. And I just want to remind everyone why we measure spring of one grade level to spring of the next grade level. In our district, we have a long history of showing larger than normed growth from fall to spring. So our growth is usually very great during the school year, but then our summer learning loss has brought us back almost to square one. And so we decided that data really wasn't super helpful because it made us look like things were going very well, but it wasn't moving the needle in the end. And so we started comparing spring to spring. So ideally, a kid would be at their highest scoring in the spring of that previous year. We know that sometimes they peak in winter and then not so into it in May when it's time to test again, but ideally they're at their highest point in spring. So that's what we will show for you. And then 70% of the students will reach their student growth percentile from fall to spring. So that is within one academic year. That student growth percentile is something that is nationally normed. That's not us arbitrarily picking a number, that is a national norm. And so it is from fall to spring. There is not a winter norm for SGP. And so what the principals will be sharing with you is students that are on route or on target to reach their SGP. So that means they are well over halfway there or are already at the 35 SGP at this point. And if things continue as we expect them to, by spring they would still be there. So there is no normative data for mid-year. So I just want to share that. Then the high school, because STAR testing is not appropriate there, we talk about 75% of students will score within or above their projected range on the reading and math portion of the ACT Aspire exam. That test hasn't been taken for this year, and so this is a one-shot, one time during the year data point. And so it's not something we can monitor as carefully throughout, but the high school has supplied some additional data in here. The presentation that went out to you did not have all of those pieces in there. Today's presentation is more thorough, and I can have Marty upload this one to Moodle for you tomorrow so that you have all of this there, but it has been included here. So, Chad, I don't know if you want to talk to it or if you want me to. Go for it. Go for it.
I can do it there. So, what you're looking at here is we're looking at benchmark assessment data for kindergarten and for first grade. It's a little bit different than for our reading, for measuring our reading scores. For forestry, we don't use the STAR reading like you'll see for for 3rd Street and for Gebhardt. Based on the age of the students that we haven't felt it was appropriate in the past. Maybe in the future we might change that. I'll just say because of PALS testing is going to go away at the state level on pre-K through 2nd grade, and then we have to come up with an alternative assessment. So we might look at the early screening stuff for reading with STAR in the future. But for now, this is what we use for this current year. On the left side, you can see you got kindergarten in the fall when they start. The benchmark assessment system is it's on a letter gradient of A through Z, I guess. And kindergartners usually come in at like a pre-A level. Basically, they don't know hardly anything about reading. All right, so they're starting out at ground zero, and that's what you're seeing there in the fall. You're looking at about 10% of our kids might have been at grade level, which is expected to be very low at that point. But by winter already, they've achieved some skills. We've got about 62% of our kids in kindergarten are at what we would consider to be at grade level for reading, based on that letter gradient that they move along. And then next over you see in 1st grade for the fall, starting off the year, you've got relatively, a little over 60% of the kids start the year at what we would consider grade level, and in 1st grade we use the letter gradient C for the beginning of the year. And then in winter, here we were using the letter gradient F, which is kind of the halfway point. They need to get to a J, it's called, but that's, so you can see quite a bit of growth already in 1st grade. That was like 82% or 83% of our class was at grade level by winter in 1st grade.
And something that's consistent in all of both the BAS and the STAR data that you will see is the target does move. So if this was grade level in the fall, by winter, the grade level has moved up. So if we're increasing the percentage of students at grade level, know that that bar has also moved as the year has progressed. So it's not that we've gotten more kids just to that level, but at grade level, that line continues to move as the year goes on as well.
Okay, for math, we have to be a little bit creative with our math, how we look at kids' student growth in kindergarten for math, just because of the lack of assessments that are out there for measuring math for kindergartners. So we have our report card rubric, it's called, and that's based on our national standards that we kind of abide by and what they're graded on for the report card. So we look at a composite score in the fall and what they could have, and we equivalent that to like being at grade level. So to start off the year in the fall, a lot of our kids knew their numbers in kindergarten. And that's what essentially like 62, 63% of the kids kind of knew what they should know to start kindergarten. Okay? By winter, that number increased to about 82% of the kids were at where they should be by the winter for their math scores in kindergarten. So there was some good growth there. First grade, we do use the STAR math test in the fall. You can see that kicking off the school year, to see where they're at, the top two green bars, 54% of the kids, I would consider them to be at grade level, at benchmark or above. And then in the winter, we increased that to 65%, so there was some growth there, which was kind of nice. You always want to see that green increase. That's one of the most important things. It's a nationally normed test on math, so that everybody was happy to see that growth in first grade. There's a little bit of an increase in the red area there. That could be, a lot of different factors involved there. That yellow and red kind of go hand in hand, I would say. But I think what was important for us to look at was the green grew quite a bit in the half year's time. Okay, for some student success stuff, we're looking at ODRs here. Them are the office discipline referrals that we use for tracking our behaviors in our buildings and whatnot. And this is data that's pulled from our Swiss data bank and so forth. So, next slide. Okay, and so I'm comparing last school year to this school year. Blue is last school year, red is this school year per month for office discipline referrals that we would have. Relatively close when you add them all up. It's more consistent across the board this year rather than that spike in December. I don't know, I can't really draw many conclusions from it, I'll be honest with you, why that is. I know that our staff is doing a really good job of trying to track our student behaviors so that we can implement different things that could impact those behaviors more positively and have less of them at school. So we look at the data quite frequently. We have PBIS meetings, it's called, on a monthly basis, and we look at our data to see where we're at and where maybe our frequent areas of problem areas might be. So here it shows the overall reduction in ODRs. It's not a big difference. You're only looking at 6 different from one year to the next in that same period of time. So pretty consistent, I guess, with the number of ODRs. Now this from 2 years ago, if I had that on there, that's a drastic reduction from 2 years ago. Okay, so we've kind of leveled out a little bit on our ODRs, and it averages out to be about 2 per day. That's not bad, I don't think, with 300 students in a building. To be tracking behaviors. 2 per day, I don't see that as bad at all. And I think that's pretty positive, actually. Okay, parent-teacher conferences. One of our goals is to have as high as possible parent-teacher conference attendance by parents or at least some sort of guardian for the kids. I guess our overall goal would be 100%. Our next slide will show that. In the fall, to start off our fall parent-teacher conference in November, about 87% of our parents showed up just on the first attempt to come. Somebody showed up, 87 out of 100 parents showed up for parent-teacher conferences. In the winter, it fell down a little bit, about 82, 83%. So pretty consistent between those two. But the thing on the right there, which I think is kind of neat, because I've mentioned where we do a second attempt and a third attempt to contact parents to reach out to the ones that didn't show up. And that's what you're seeing there. By our second and third attempts to contact parents, we increased it to 95% across the board between both of those. So we're averaging 95%.
Chad actually has created like a Google Doc spreadsheet where teachers have to document what attempts they've made, and one way attempt does not count as parent outreach. There has to be some engagement by the parent, and he shared that, and I just learned today from Rick and Laura that they're going to start that same monitoring throughout the elementary, because obviously 95% is a fantastic outcome when it comes to engaging parents in that. So.
And the key is that reciprocal communication. So not just sending them something and not getting a response, but getting a response and being able to communicate with them. Constitutes a success of conference.
And at some point, if you're the neg, that's okay, because the parent at some point will engage with us, and that's what we're asking for, so that's good.
And you know, you guys hear a lot about our family nights, just showing you our attendance there, 301 to 287. You know, we're pretty consistent with our numbers on that, and we're hoping for those same numbers coming up on March 10th as well for that Dr. Seuss.
Thanks, Chad.
Thanks.
It's okay, we'll go through all of them, and then if you have questions, we can go back, or we have, okay?
All right, so third straight, second and third grade STAR. We do use the STAR for both reading and math. And as Shelley had mentioned at the beginning, our goals we've set are spring to spring. And you know, we talked about summer loss, and when you use a spring to spring measure, it includes the summer. And that, I think, is an important piece, because yes, we're growing within our doors, but that's also a piece of the puzzle that we want. And I think our reading incentives, incentive to get them reading outside of school while we have them through the school year, is hopefully something we can carry into the summer, this summer, and beyond, and hopefully help bridge that gap a little bit. So that's a big piece of a habit that we're trying to create this year. But second grade, we don't have that, because they don't do the STAR reading test in the fall, or in the first grade rather. So that is truly fall to winter of this year. And as you can see, we do make some really nice gains in the time that we have them. The green on the first fall graph to the green in the second graph, and then the shrinking of the red and yellow, you know, shows you that those kids are gaining in what they're doing. Third grade on the right hand side, spring would be the spring of their second grade year, and you can see going into the fall, just you know, that summer loss. I'm showing that I need glasses. 8% on the top of the spring one, and that's the 90th percentile or higher. You know, shrinking down to 2, and then down on the bottom, the 18% up to 23%. You know, those are obviously numbers we'd like to go the opposite direction, and over that summer piece, that's a challenge. Now, as we look again at our fall to winter, we're starting to spread those back the direction we'd like to. We do have a goal that I'll just talk to in a little bit, because this is where the graph is, of increasing our kids that are above benchmark by 5%. Now again, that's going to go from that 8% on the first graph. We're at 7% now, so we haven't even quite caught up to where we were last spring, but we're in the direction of gaining that hopefully by the end of the year, and again with the amount of reading our kids are doing, it's going in the right direction. So
something that we talked about today during our coaching too is that this chart is evident that it's not just our low-skilled kids who experience summer loss, that some of our high-achieving kids also experience that summer loss. So it is not that reading is hard, so I don't want to do it. These are pretty talented kids, and they don't want to do it. And so the summer loss is not isolated to just our kids who are challenged.
So if you take a look at our 4th and 5th graders, you can see our 4th grade over on the left-hand side. Just give you a second to look. So we are increasing the overall, the green and the dark green, if you take it from spring to winter. We're hoping to hit that 70% by the end of the year, by spring. So we're well on our way, but not quite there. We've also stayed pretty consistent with our yellow and red. So This week at Gebhardt, we are having individual data meetings with each of our teachers, and we're going through, and we did the same thing at 3rd Street last week. So, you know, we hope to dig in with them with our literacy coach, Vicki Kramer, as well, and see if we can make some shifts there by spring. When you look at 5th grade, we've significantly increased the amount of green from spring to winter. I believe another piece is to increase that green by 5%. So you can see that we've met that already as well. And I love the red decreasing significantly from 16 to 8. So cutting that in half, that's a good thing. I think I have my numbers right.
So math, similar looking graphs as far as how they're measured. And Laura mentioned the data meetings we're doing. We just finished last week meeting with each individual classroom teacher about their math and their reading, both the achievement and the growth. And that's a good time for us to sit down and really fine tune, okay, here are 5 kids in your class that are just, you know, blowing us away with their, you know, their growth. What's working well with them that we can apply to these other couple kids that might be struggling a little bit, so we can have that specific conversation. So the red, yellow, blue, you know, we're color coding, but we're definitely talking about individual kids and their own personalities and learning styles and what strategies will work for them. So that's a conversation we had at 3rd Street last week, and then tomorrow and Thursday we'll have with our Gebhardt teachers as well. So some very valuable conversations. In math, some nice pieces to highlight, I guess, there, as well as the shrinking of those lower categories. And we do have targeted interventions for reading and math that help us focus a lot of extra attention on the kids that are having that challenge on the bottom. Something that we've really put a big focus on this year especially is a target 10 group for the kids that are on the top end of that bar graph for math. And it was really neat to see some of that data this year. Every single one of those kids, even if they're 2, 3, 4 grade levels above where they are, still seeing some decent growth because of that targeted support that they're getting. So really making a deliberate effort to reach each individual kid. So it's neat conversations to have.
So for 4th and 5th grade, 4th again on the left-hand side, you can see that we are increasing the green overall. Our top end we've basically maintained, which isn't a horrible thing, but it'd be nice to get that number growing as well. Same thing that looks pretty similar on the top end with our 5th grade, our high-end kids, but we are shrinking the bottom end, and specifically the red. That's nice to see to decrease those bottom kids.
Whenever we talk about response to intervention, the core instruction is supposed to meet the needs of between 80 and 85% of students. So that means in any grade level, 80 to 85% of our students should be in the dark green, the green, or even in the blue. And so our red and yellow, in order to say that we are doing our job with our core instruction, the red and yellow should combine together for between 15 and 20%. As we flip back through the other ones, we're a long ways away in some areas. We've always taken that mentality that the longer they're in our system, typically the closer we close that gap, and the high school certainly is evidence of that. When we're struggling through and then they hit high school and our scores get closer to the average. It's nice to see that at some of these levels, the younger levels, that we're truly at the 10 to 15%, and that's a national statistic, that 10 to 15% need something in addition to core instruction. Okay, we can do that. Where we're struggling is when 25, 30% need something in addition to that core instruction. So this is good news.
So this is a graph of measuring growth, and we had a conversation today that we need to put our scale on the side 0 to 100, so, because when you really zoom in on the top of the bars, this is where our 4 different grade levels of Gebhardt and 3rd Street are. And again, if you remember back to one of the first slides, our goal was to have 70% of our kids on target to reach their growth based on that national norm data with the student growth percentile, SGP. 2nd grade, 3rd grade, both right in there. 4th grade, just a little bit below that. And again, that's a conversation we have with those teachers of, you know, how do we look at specific students so we can, you know, give them that little extra expectations for them to rise above that bar. And then again at 5th grade, 83% on target, which is awesome.
Some of those in-depth conversations with each of the individual teachers too helps guide the literacy training, professional development. So that's a nice piece to have her sit in on these meetings, Stephanie as well as Vicki, so that they can dig in and listen to the teachers and tag teaming and come up with some different thoughts that the teachers can use to help support those kids in the classroom. If we take a look at the math for 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and 5th, again, we're looking for that 70th percentile. So, or 70%.
Reaching it, yeah.
Right. And so, 3rd and 4th grade dips a little, but 2nd and 5th are on track. So again, lots of goals were set last week, so hopefully this spring we'll see some good achievement and growth.
The middle school slides, as you can tell, and I trust you've had a chance to take a peek at these before tonight, are almost identical to the way that the elementaries are set up. Again, we look also for an increase in the green, particularly at the very top where those students are above benchmark or above grade level. Our goal, just to reiterate the first slide, is that we want to increase by 5% those students who are at or above benchmark from spring of last year to spring of this coming year. So for each grade level, the far bar on the left shows where they were last year at the end of the school year. And then the middle bar shows how they did at the start of the year. And then we look at the third one is, of course, how they did in January. And we will look again, of course, when we take testing in May, and we're talking about when might be the best time to test them. We have the new Badger Forward exam coming up, and last year what was it called?
Smarter Balance.
The Smarter Balance test.
That was the Badger. That was the Badger exam. This year's Forward. Yeah, Wisconsin Forward.
Sure.
Who can keep track, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I suppose there's something to be said for a little test weariness, a little test anxiety. Yet, I think more than anything, kids respond to their teachers. And when I have those conversations with staff about the importance of pumping these kids up, that is really what matters. With those individual conversations with Johnny and Susie saying, hey look, here's where you were in the fall, let's see what you can do in the winter. And even better, let's see what you can do in the spring of the year. And you try to increase those goals and set some incentives along the way. Make a phone call to a parent, give them an attaboy, and the kids, I think, really will perform for their teachers. And that is an important part too, that relationship, that connection that the teacher makes with the students. So, okay, next slide please, unless you guys have any questions on that. And then our math, we are again pleased to see the increase in the green. You can see, just for example, the current 6th graders as 5th graders, 62% were at or above grade level, and this winter, 70% are already at or above grade level. If you see how that works there, the green has increased, so that's really, really powerful and powerful important information regarding how our program, our instruction is working for students.
Dave, if I could just add, you'll notice something here that we didn't see in the elementary, that the green is a steady increase as opposed to the zigzag from the summer loss, too. We noticed that just about all of the younger grade levels, there was that huge zigzag, whereas at middle school, that doesn't seem to be as much of a factor. So I just think that's interesting. And math is more so a strength than the reading was. But
well, look at on the far right there. Look at the this year's 8th graders ended the year as 7th graders at only 47% at or above grade level, and currently 60%. That's an increase of 13% of students who are at or above grade level. That's very good, and that's, I think, due in large part to our interventions, which is helping push or increase the kids at the ones who are in need of intervention. It helps get them more assistance. And during our Tiger Time, we have courses designed to increase students' science and math and technology skills, to try and stretch the brain another direction. And that's a work in progress, our 30-minute daily Tiger Time. Some kids are either in an intervention or else they're in an enrichment. And the kids that are in the enrichment, we're trying to increase that green color even more. So we're very, very excited about that information. It was great to share that with staff, too. And the 6th graders, let me think here. We're looking at kids, our goal is for 70% of kids to reach their SGP, reach their student growth percentile. And in 6th grade, already 86% have reached that. Now, I think Shelley alluded to the fact that this bar continues to raise too as the kids go through the school year. Hopefully they get smarter, right? So we got to raise that bar too. So the 6th graders, 7th graders, 66%, 8th graders, 66%, and our goal is to hit 70. And in math, that's good news for us. We're already there, but we need to be there in the spring too. We need to be there not just in the winter, but in the spring, hitting 70%. So basically what we do is take the total number of kids who took the test, and I go through and count which kids hit 35 or above, and then you divide that to get your total percentage of students in that grade who have hit their SGP. Great. Any questions?
this would not have been in your packet, so Mr. Chambers is going to.
So we're switching from bar charts to line charts. I don't have the fancy colors.
Drum rolls a little differently, right?
Drum rolls a little differently, yeah. And unfortunately, the lines are not going in a great direction here. As you can see, the top chart, this is data that I've been keeping track of almost since I've been here. So going back to 2007, and what it tracks, the top chart is tracking essentially the percentage of all grades that were A's, B's, or C's. So it doesn't matter how many students we're talking about in the classes. It's for the school year 2006-2007. That first dot shows you what percentage of the grades that were received by all the students were A's, B's, or C's. And unfortunately, beginning of this school year, so our first semester this year, we took a drop from around the 77% down to 72%. Or, yes, right around 72%. On the flip side, that means that the number of failures, or the percentage of failures in those grades jumped up also from just under 10% to just over 12% of the grades are failures. So the question, that begs the question, what's going on here? What do we do? And we can't deny that that's the fact. But what we can do is look at, number one, why did that happen? And number two, what do we do to respond to that? And the first thing that we are going to do is we're going to sit down with that data and we're going to dig through it and look into it in more depth. And one thing that I believe is happening that we need to look at is the number of actual students that is represented by that 2016, those 2016 points. I think on the F side, I think it's not more students, I think it's more students with more significant situations. So more students with more multiple failures. And so we're not necessarily talking about more students, we're talking about more severely in need or at risk students. That'll play out when we look at the data and decide or figure out whether that's accurate or not, but just from our experiences in dealing with students with mental health, students with severe family situations and so on, we're seeing more and more on a weekly basis, because I create a list every week that I send out to the teachers of students who have failing grades, so that they can, during that advising time in the morning, meet individually with those students, connect with those teachers, and intervene to make sure that these numbers are going in the other direction. And so I just have seen more and more students where there's 4, 5, 6 of those courses that they're not passing. So that's the first thing. The second thing we're going to do is interview the teachers and talk to them about our new grading policy. We, as you know, implemented a new grading policy this year. One of the most significant changes was the fact that students were not able anymore to come at the end of the semester and turn in a boatload of stuff that they hadn't gotten done, and kind of throw out that
lifeline.
Lifeline to them. We were putting more of the onus on them to do the work up front, to get it done when it needs to be done, and then close that off at the unit. And that could be having some impact on this as well. So those are the factors that I believe we need to look into. As I mentioned, tomorrow we have our building leadership team meeting, and we're going to look at this data in more depth and discuss the perception of the teachers, but also then dig into that data. And then on the 18th we have our school improvement meeting, where we'll really be able to sit down and look at what types of things do we do in order to address this specific situation with the grades. Now, that being said, our overall school improvement goal is based on the ACT and Aspire test results that we'll get hopefully much sooner than we did this year, and be able to compare those to last spring and look at that. And we have been doing a lot with the close reading, with reading for understanding and annotating, and doing a lot of different interventions that address specific ACT type questioning, and so we're hoping that that's going to have a positive impact on those scores.
So when we were looking at the planning, there's that void of high school data, and so we fall back to grades because that's one measure of student achievement. And as Tom mentioned, this just came to light at the end of the semester, and haven't had a lot of chance to dig into it, but I'm very, very anxious to see if it is, because how you attack the problem would be significantly different if it was a small number of kids with many, many failures versus a lot of students with 1 or 2 failures, significantly different. So. All right, just briefly, as we move through many of the next slides, many of them are perception data, and we have agreed that we're only going to do perception surveys one time during the year. So annually we do staff, we do parents, and we do students once a year, and then community once every 3 years. So some of these we're not going to have data for, but there are a couple more with data in there. So this one is, we don't have the perception data yet from the staff. The next one is also the 3rd Street, is also, the top one is perception data that we will get. And then the bottom one Rick talked about a little bit, increasing the percentage of the dark green by 5%. Gebhardt, that is perception data. Middle school, that is perception data. So we'll get that at the end. 3rd Street perception, and here we go. Parent-teacher conference participation, they just parked it at the end. And so 3rd Street and Gebhardt, that is the percentage of, we measured the percentage of students that were represented by 1 or more adults during conferences. And so you can see here 89, 92, 80, 87, and then the average 87%. And so as we said, Chad has shared that spreadsheet, and they will be sharing those practices with all the teachers at those levels. And then the middle school fall parent-teacher conference, talking about a progression there, the fall off of parent participation in conferences there, and they've had 1 round of conferences and they're in the middle of that 2nd one now. Staff increase consistent processes, that's again a perception point. High school, this is also parent-teacher conferences from the high school. I'm having a hard time reading what the second one is. Oh, October and November, so they did 2 rounds of conferences right away, and so obviously you can see in the fall, people were a lot more eager. If you can't read that scale, it goes from 0% to 45 is the top of that scale there. And then this one, Tom has kept this data for many years, and so...
That one just shows, we did a pretty significant PR campaign and trying to get parents in. We actually had the students during one of their advising periods whip out their cell phones and call their moms and dads and say, parent-teacher conferences are coming up, make sure you attend. That was for the October one. So you see the large 22%, that was the percentage of students who were represented this October. Compare that to last October was 16, and then in the 20s prior to that. And then the November one, it was 18%, which is also among the higher of the past number of years. And we really think that at the high school level, and probably somewhat at the middle school level, many parents are on top of grades and communicating or at least checking those grades in a pretty regular manner. So I feel that that's a significant way that they communicate and connect with those teachers and stay on top of what's happening with their children.
So any questions for any of the principals after seeing the mid-year data? It's a lot of charts, a lot of graphs, but you guys are getting quite proficient at analyzing them. Yes, you are. Okay. All right. Thanks, folks. Thanks for your participation.
It's nice to see them consistent. This,
good.
You know, I mean,
good.
like that.
All the same format.
Like, it feels, yeah.
That's my OCD.
Yeah.
The next piece that I put in there, honestly, since we are absent 3 of our board members, I am fine leaving that one. I just had that agenda proposal in to share with you, but if it's okay with you, I would table that till next month when we have the whole group, if you're okay with that.
Sure.
All right.
Okay, so moving on then to discussion items requested by the board. 11.1, first reading of policy 537.2.
You can see there's a lot of red. The policy really doesn't tell us anything that we don't already have documented well other places, and so would recommend that we just delete this policy. And the policy committee also agreed that if we have things there that aren't really serving a purpose, that people were okay weeding out some of our policies. So any questions or concerns with eliminating this one?
And so policy 840, grants and gifts from outside sources.
Sure. So this one ups the authority that you grant to me in allowing people to seek grants and gifts. Before it was $2,500 before it needed board approval, and we are asking to increase that to $10,000 because one, $2,500 doesn't buy you as much now as it did when the policy was originally created in 2004 was the last time it was updated, but also there really are a lot of unique grant and funding opportunities that pop up, like this WXOW that Sarah did. You know, sometimes it could slow down the process if they had to wait for a board meeting for approval to even make the request, and I feel like you always have the authority to not accept something if somebody seeks it and I approve it and then you decide you strongly oppose to that. You have the ability to deny that later. Additionally, I feel very strongly that I want you to know about all the gifts that we get, so even if I can approve them at up to $10,000, I would still include them for your information so that you are aware of all of them coming in. So that was the change, and then I just updated the language on the bottom for the non-discrimination thoughts. Questions or concerns about that change?
So, moving on to policy 841, staff requests for gifts or grants.
I have no idea why this policy also existed. It is an almost exact duplicate of 840, and so it is serving the exact same function, and so I would recommend deleting 841.
So there were no discussion items requested by the public. And board reports, WASB.
Naoma included in the packet for you her delegate notes, and she said, I kind of got to chicken scratching by the end, but she goes, it was an interesting conversation, and so she's not able to be here tonight, but I know that if you had questions for her, she'd be happy to answer them, but I thought it was nice that she gave us her notes so that if you were curious, you could check it out.
How about policy committee?
We did agree that we were going to meet on an every other month basis, unless there are sometimes when law changes that we have to do policies on a more urgent basis. Otherwise, it's really just cleaning up the huge masses that we have, and perhaps it was me whining, but I said, how much of a priority is that for the way I spend my time? And so we decided that instead of calling everyone together for an hour each month, I would do a bunch of them and we would meet every other month, unless there was something that was substantive change, because so many of our policies are just updating language, they're not really substance including. And so when there's stuff of substance that needs to be done, we will certainly call meetings more often if we have to, but we agreed that every other month for that cleanup would be the most efficient use of everyone's time. But that means I need to bring a lot every other month.
Right. Okay, community engagement committee.
We did not meet.
Okay. And student success committee, we did meet and we went through an awful lot of data, which we looked at tonight. And so really had good discussions. In fact, we didn't actually get all the way through. We did get sort of.
Yeah,
we extended some of the items. So the graduate survey approval discussion, we are going to have our thoughts to Stephanie by the 26th of this month, so that we can address that again in March. So otherwise, we pretty much looked at what we looked at here tonight. So.
Great.
And conference or workshop attendance.
Nope, there was that one report that Marty put in for you. But.
And no other reports. Future agenda item identification.
Anybody have any topics you'd like to see? Okay.
Yeah, I would kind of like to review what's going on in the music program.
Okay.
And
they're doing the musical Shrek coming up shortly, because they're my next spotlight on schools to go up and record. I'm taking the donkey and Fiona to record with me. So certainly. So they don't necessarily have a department leader, but perhaps ask maybe an elementary and a secondary person to come and just give kind of an update on what offerings are available.
Right.
And
I think what offerings and how they're meeting and what their participation, especially in the high school where it's a choice, what their participation rates have been.
You bet.
Anything else? Okay, so with that, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
I so moved.
All right, and is there a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thanks for your time, everyone. Much appreciated. We had a lot of agenda items. We're so lucky.